Hi, everyone. Welcome to our talk today. We're going to be talking about building data applications powered by Looker. My name is Mike Xu. I'm an architect at Google. I help our customers design, architect, and build their applications using the Looker platform. And today I'm also joined by my friend and colleague, Nick.
Hey everyone, I'm Nick Fogler. I'm the founder and CEO of Mile Analytics, and we're a strategic Looker partner really specializing in the kind of custom data experiences built on top of the Looker platform features we'll be talking about today.
So for our agenda and our talk today, we're going to be covering Looker as a platform, all the different facets of Looker's platform to build your application. And also, we're going to be looking at a case study of building an application using one of these facets, which is the API, for a global Fortune 100 retailer. So Looker originally was built as a business intelligence and analytics tool for analysts, marketers, and product managers. It has this really awesome layer of technology called LookML, the Look modeling language, which allows you to express business logic, and then your end users can derive insights from the data with no code at all. So they don't need to know SQL, and they don't need to run MapReduce jobs. So it's really evolved now to become an extensible platform to power other applications, so you can get the richness of every data source connected to Looker that has LookML built on top of it. You can also leverage Looker's governance and security model, as well as borrow from its front end as well. So we're not really going to be talking too much about Looker today. There's plenty of content out there available. We're going to be primarily focused on Looker's platform. So there's three different facets that Looker offers. The embed and the API, these are ways of getting Looker into your application. And the extension framework is really to change Looker so that way it becomes more the application that you want. The embedded Looker, this is the way of getting visual elements within Looker, such as dashboards or the explorers or saved reports, and you plop that right into your application. If you don't like the way that Looker's dashboards or reports look, that's what the API and SDK are for. These are lower level building blocks that we offer, so you can build a completely bespoke experience from scratch. And for our case study, Nick will primarily be focused on looking at the API. Finally, we have the extension framework. The extension framework is, again, this is to mold Looker to be whatever you want, whatever suits your data needs. You can use your own custom JavaScript directly within Looker. So let's dive into the first facet of Looker's platform, the embedded Looker. So here we have some application code. This is on your server application. It's actually one of Looker's SDKs. This is our JavaScript SDK. We provide our SDK in many different languages, such as Java, Python, Go, whatever you would like to use. So the first thing we need to do on our server is to provide which Looker server we're going to request the embed from, and also the shared secret to authenticate our application to that Looker. Once we've taken care of the security configurations, we can now define some user context for our embed. So the user context really serves two different purposes. First, we get end-to-end tracing of that user as they're using our native application and Looker. And secondly, we're also tightly coupling the security between the native application and Looker. We identify the user. We can either use a single sign-on service available if we already have that built out, or we could just use the native application's metadata and provide some sort of user ID to the Looker. This context is also really important to provide to Looker because this is what governs what they can see in Looker in terms of data, and also which features in Looker they have access to within that embed. Now we're going to switch gears a little bit. We're going to jump into the front end of the application. We're finally going to instantiate our embed. Once the embed is instantiated, we can couple that with the native application through the event bus. In this example, we're modifying which buttons are actually driving the dashboard's interaction by binding listeners in our native application on top of Looker's embed. So here's what it looks like. We have our native application outside of this red outline. And within the red outline, we have embedded Looker. You can see this, if you're familiar with Looker's dashboards, this is just a themed Looker dashboard. But if you notice, there's no filters. Like, you don't see Looker's native filters. We're actually building filters outside within the native application and coupling that to the Looker embedded dashboard through the event bus. You can imagine how this can rapidly accelerate your development of applications, because you're not really building too much front-end code or data visualization code. So if you want something different, though, like if our dashboards or reports really don't meet your needs, that's really when we start recommending the API. So here's our API documentation page, and you can see the large list of different methods we offer. These actually are the methods that we use internally to build Looker itself. And we offer them to you to build your applications. So you have 100% coverage of what Looker can do directly through our API. Here's an example of an API application that Nick has built with his team at 4Mile. So if you're familiar with Looker, right off the bat, this looks like a native Explorer in Looker. But this is actually very different. In this segment application, we're really building the experience for the user to be working with different audience segments and cohorts in mind. So you're really just comparing cohorts and looking at the results between them instead of building these complex filter groups. So here we're building out one of the cohorts using the attributes available within our user data set. And once we've built out this cohort or multiple cohorts, we can start doing reporting against them to search for outliers or maybe positive or negative performances within a specific area of that cohort. So again, if you're familiar with Looker's Query Builder, this is a much lighter weight and much more custom-tailored experience designed for marketers who are focused on cohort research. Here we have another application that was built on top of our API. This was built for global payments. And this was a merchant portal, and it allows the merchants to see their transactions over time. So they can see for each of their given customers what they're making transactions on, when they made it, and what kind of metadata is associated with those transactions. We also have top-level reporting to see overall the cash flow throughout the day. We're also going to be diving more into the API when we cover our case study. Lastly, this is the newest facet to Looker's platform, which is the extension framework. So the extension framework is very different from the embed and API route because you really don't have to host anything. You don't have any application server yourself. You don't have a back end or a front end. Looker is all of that. So what you're doing is you're sending us your custom JavaScript, which will be encapsulated so that way your data sources are still protected and also your Looker is protected, but you're still able to get the data experience that you really want. So here, this extension was built by 4Mile and Nick's team again. If you notice, we are still inside Looker. We have the Looker menu bar at the top, but this is a highly branded experience. We've augmented Looker with the user's native context in mind to help them discover insights and hopefully increase actionability. We're making Looker feel more like home to them. In this next dashboard, we're overlaying multiple metrics. So for this example, this is a sportswear company, and we're looking at how weather is impacting the supply chain in terms of orders and dollar value to the business. So hopefully you can see how the extension framework really helps you build these experiences that just having tables and graphs don't necessarily help the users in drawing insights. When you want something really, really custom or unique in Looker, we encourage using the extension framework. So if you're interested in learning more about also how other people are using Looker as a platform, or more about how other people are using each of these facets, there's lots of different resources available. First, there's the Looker blocks directory. These are just code example snippets that you can take and drop that right in your application. We also have community libraries, community tools such as linters, stress testing tools, and finally there's look-ML patterns. So if you have a specific type of data set, we already have like the best ways of analyzing that data set, and you could just steal that from us. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Nick so that way we can look at a case study of actually building an application on top of the Looker platform.
Thank you so much, Mike. Yeah, so we at 4Mile had the great pleasure of partnering with Mike and his team over at Looker recently on a year-long engagement to build a large-scale data application on top of the Looker API for a major global retailer. And I'm super excited to be here today with you to share a little bit about the underlying business need that we were trying to address, the technical approach we took, and some of the outcomes. So let's dive in. Our starting point on this engagement was an internal analytics application that our customer had previously built, whose goal was really to serve metrics to their retail merchants. So the merchants are the folks that make key decisions about what to stock on the shelves, from which vendors to purchase, and how to price each item. So really kind of foundational stuff for any retail business. At the scale that this particular customer of ours operates, pricing decisions, involving pennies either way can have outcomes, implications in the millions of dollars. So all of this decision-making support is very strategic. This application had been in development for about 2 years. They had had about 100 people plus working on it. And generally the consensus was that there was insufficient level of engagement. People just really weren't adopting the application, and the return on investment just wasn't there. Additionally, I think because of a lack of speed and agility, they were really focusing on a one-size-fits-all approach to their analytics. So it was very top-down. The bottom line was that the application just really wasn't keeping pace with the analytic needs of this organization. And without access to timely and relevant insights, merchants were just not really using data to drive their decision-making. So our mandate, if you will, was to come in and just highly accelerate the delivery of the right insights to the right people at the right time, and ultimately to help drive the fundamentals of this business through data. Broadly speaking, I think any BI application will be composed of a couple of different layers. On one hand, you'll have a data backend, typically consisting of some kind of storage and a query engine sitting on top of that. And then you'll have application code, which serves to provide a user interface and allow data exploration and data visualizations. We really saw opportunities in both of these layers to drive further acceleration. On the data backend side, our customer was using ThoughtSpot along with a very manual and time-consuming data engineering workflow. And as a result, when a product person wanted to publish a new insight, it would take weeks and sometimes months to get that in front of users to even find out if it had any kind of business value. So iteration cycles were just taking way too long. Looker talks about this problem as the data breadlines problem, in which you stand in a queue for a long time and you wait to get your little nugget of wisdom, and then having gotten a little taste for it, you now have to get back in the back of the queue and wait all over again. The real wonder of data analytics, in my opinion, is that good answers beget new questions. And if your goal really is to build a data-driven organization and culture, your data stack needs to be responsive to this virtuous cycle of inquiry. Looker's really built to solve this exact problem. It's kind of its core value proposition. And by adding Looker to the stack, now new questions can be answered without this big long round trip of moving and transforming data, but rather with just simple changes to Looker's data model via LookML, which Mike referred to earlier. And those changes can be done practically in real time and by people with much less technical sophistication. So just by applying Looker to the stack, we brought a huge increase in speed and flexibility. On the application code side, we replaced a lot of verbose and poorly encapsulated code with an application development toolkit that we built which gives engineers the means to deliver new data insights just an order of magnitude more quickly and with a lot less complexity. The toolkit offers a high level of reusability and a very clear separation of concerns. So if you'll permit, let's dive in one layer deeper and just take a closer look at the toolkit. It's kind of composed of two levels. There's a data service, kind of a backend data service, which is responsible for proxying API requests to Looker. And then on the front-end SDK side, there is some capabilities to build data visualizations in a more kind of recurring way. So we'll take a look at each of those two in turn. The architecture of the application is composed of a series of microservices, each really in charge of their own area of concern. So there's one that does authentication, there's another that does logging, and there is also one, of course, that surfaces ThoughtSpot-backed data to power front-end visualizations. We elected to integrate into this existing architecture by building a parallel Looker-backed data service. And this had the huge advantage of not really requiring us to rip and replace any part of the existing architecture. If we had done so, it probably would have brought product development to a standstill and probably would have been met with a lot of resistance, let's say, resistance to change. So instead, we just built this parallel service, and without a lot of fuss, we just started doing it a better and faster way and let the results speak for themselves. In a pretty short amount of time, engineering teams fairly organically just started moving over to using the Looker data back service because it just made their jobs easier and allowed them to do a lot more with a lot less. The other really good advantage about this kind of data as a sidecar service is that it exists somewhat decoupled from the application context in which it was developed, which means it can be reused in a whole variety of different ways. We've essentially built a capability as much as we've built a specific solution, and the capability can be used to, for example, power other internal applications or even externally facing applications that our customer might want to monetize. Given the constraints of this particular enterprise environment, our data service wasn't built in the cloud, but it's important to note that in other circumstances, you could use cloud-based API type services like Apigee, for example, to play the same role in this kind of architecture. Okay, so with that discussion of the data service, let's pivot a little bit and talk about the development toolkit that we built that handles the front-end visualizations. For the front-end SDK, we built a series of reusable React components, each one representing a different data visualization type. We developed the interface you're looking at here, which exposes each of the different Viz components and acts kind of like live documentation, allowing developers and product owners and UX designers to collaborate on the best way to tell the given data story. Anyone with access can adjust the Viz configuration parameters to get the Viz just right prior to committing any code. We then connected these components to the Looker data service we just spoke about and parameterized them such that we can pass the ID of any pre-built Looker query object, connect it to the Viz, and essentially render the results here in real time. Once everybody's happy with the results, it's just a matter really of copying a couple of lines of generated code into the React application codebase. So by way of both the Looker data service we spoke about earlier and this front-end SDK, we've been able to leverage existing capabilities within Looker and build a scalable architecture that vastly accelerates time to value for our customers while also decreasing complexity. The net result on this engagement has been a 10x increase in the speed it takes to publish new insights in the application, and all of that with about a third of the engineering resources required. So now, with relevant and timely insights at their disposal, these retail merchants are using the application in much higher numbers and with much more regularity than ever before. So from a purely quantitative perspective, I think it's fair to say achievement unlocked. But honestly, the qualitative outcomes of this engagement to me are even more exciting. What we delivered initially was a series of capabilities offering speed and flexibility for the product team and the engineering team. But subsequently, we've taken these same capabilities and offered them to end users, allowing them really for the first time to self-service insights. And as a result, the product has moved from this very top-down, one-size-fits-all approach to analytics to one that really promotes much greater data democratization and ultimately better decision-making throughout the business. The net result is an organization much better prepared to steer the course through challenging economic environments. So that pretty much wraps up what I want to share about this engagement. I do want to encourage you to explore how Looker's platform capabilities can transform your own data culture and in turn, your business. With that, I'm going to go ahead and hand it back to Mike.
All right. Thank you, Nick, for that walkthrough of the case study. So I really hope this talk gives you guys a good sense of the Looker platform's capabilities, how it works, and what it can offer you. Hopefully you're imagining how it can enable you and your team to build some really cool new data experiences. Developing with the right tools can really decrease the complexity and also maintenance cost of our rich applications. And this helps us rapidly build more and more powerful applications as well. It's important really to note that Looker is really just a piece of the tool set within Google's development environment. In Google's ecosystem, there are lots of other tools designed with developers and their applications in mind. Together, by using all of these tools correctly, you can really accelerate development and enable your ability to deliver some custom experiences. Again, because we're freeing up resources or augmenting our resources, this new capacity allows us to really innovate and make groundbreaking business discoveries for our end users. If you're interested in learning more, here are some links to the Looker platform, and of course also to 4Mile, so you can see what Nick and his team are up to and their projects. With that, thanks so much for coming to our talk, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.